right, thank you. My name is Jeff Sloan. I'm coming from Denver. We are with the Department of Interior, and next month will be our 10th year that we've been in the drone business. So it's a little different perspective, but I'll show you why we're doing it and how it's very similar to what we've always done in the mapping world. And it has taken off like crazy. Every bureau within the Interior is grasping this and making it all pretty operational, both in the research world and in applied land management. So the reason, just to give you a big overview of it, the Department of Interior manages 1 out of every 5 acres, primarily in the west, but all that colored area there is what we have to manage. So that's a big job. The way that we originally had done that was with topographic maps, and then later with remote sensing processes. But 9 bureaus under the Department of Interior. As I said, every one of these are getting into the UAV drone world full bore, and I'll describe that a little more. So our icon was John Wesley Powell, and he described that topographic maps. We've been doing it for 130 years, and that I want to try to set the historical framework to show you that the drones are no different than anything else that we've ever done. Just a whole different resolution and a different scale that we're working with. So just to prove that, even with the Alidade and a plane table in the surveying era of mapping, they could actually create a topographic map right in the field. As a proof of that, some of those maps that we see are going clear back to the 1900s, predating that. So we know that those were done by hand. That evolved, of course. It's still really the same method that we always did. What we were collecting out in the field there was just topography and planimetry. So it's topography and the ground control and the elevation measurements, and then planimetry just points, lines, and areas. And it's really no different than what the GIS built off of and what we're doing today with the drones. So historically, that progressed into the aerial era when the various platforms became available. We found out that if we could collect that in stereo, as I know all you guys know this, but I give talks to 3rd graders all the way up. So just to describe it, if we can collect that in a stereo overlap, then we can create all that we were doing out in the field right in the office. And obviously with our analytical stereo plotters, where it set those stereo photos the way they were taken in the field, it was projected down onto a stylus, and we could collect in 3D. That was given over to the map separates, where we actually were scribing off the line work and creating the photographic plates that went to a printing process. And a lot of the programs for aerial photography were pretty formalized and captured with very sophisticated metric cameras that were at various scales. So the programs like National Aerial Photography Program and the high altitude programs, they're all still available. They're all actually in photographic format. A lot of those are being scanned. We can go back and recreate some of that data. And then, of course, using the near infrared, even programs emerged out of that, of course, of great value to us for vegetation studies. And then the digital era came along. This is late 1980s, early 1990 time frame, where everything was massively converted. All of our analog maps were created into digital form, as well as a lot of the satellites and aerial photography cameras were all becoming digital. So that just increased everything times 10, and speed-wise. And then GPS, probably the biggest revolutionary change in mapping that I will say drone technology may be rivaling, but GPS came in fairly slow. But of course, we know what that does for all of our industry. And GIS and digital photogrammetry fed right into that. So all these were the exact same way we were doing everything else, just creating that data. And now it goes into digital layers that we can make even more useful. So where do the drones fit in? We got interested in this in the early 2000s when we saw the military leveraging the drone capabilities, and we would go to some of the conferences. We were the only domestic people there. It was all military. A lot of the cameras were at an angle, looking forward, and video. So we kept our eyes open. We said, can't you just turn that camera straight down, and can you just take still frame? Video doesn't do us a lot of good. So we did see a need that it would fill that gap right below 1,000 feet, and actually, to be more specific, below about 400 feet, what you're seeing in the commercial world. So as you boil that down, there's really nothing different in this at all. It's the platform, the sensor, and then collecting that data and then processing it, which is becoming a bigger and bigger job, and managing it, and then we archive it and get it out to the public. So to describe these a little more in detail, the way the department is handling this, the FAA considers these aircraft, even down to the little small ones that sit in your hand. So we have to treat them as aircraft. So our Office of Aviation Services at the department level in Boise, Idaho, coordinates this for us. First of all, on your left-hand side is what we started with. These were given to the USGS, and we used them clear up till 2015. They were the AeroVironment Raven and the Honeywell T-Hawk. Those were given to us in various conditions. They were going to destroy them. Came to us from the Department of the Army out of Huntsville, Redstone Arsenal in Huntsville, Alabama. And that got us going. And really, as I said, we've been in it 10 years next month. The first 7 years of this was probably figuring out the policies. The FAA was developing the rules as we were trying to figure this all out as well. So we put those to use. We did every possible modification you can do to a little Raven. We stuffed a GoPro camera in there right away, anything that it would lift. And it actually did a very nice job for quite a while. Moving over to the right-hand side, we, of course, are watching that technology just as everybody else is. They want to, our aviation services want to handle those as fleet aircraft. So it's very much like the military set up the tiers. These are by weight and by carrying capability. So we have the little micro category, a fixed wing. What I don't show there is a heavier lifting VTOL, vertical takeoff and landing. And then our heavy lifter, which is a bigger helicopter about the size of a snowmobile. So looking at these all go out for bid, and we look at this technology on a 2 to 3 year cycle. We know this is changing at least that fast, if not faster, but that's how we're going to handle that. And all the department has access to these vehicles. They're all serial number, tail number, the whole bit. It's all tracked very well. As far as repairs, the same way. Just to describe a little further, the little Solo is very, very much like what you see in your neighborhoods flying around. That is our workhorse. That's what a majority of our guys are being trained on. There is a formalized training in the department, so we're all trained the same. I can plug in a USGS guy with a Park Service guy with a Fish and Wildlife guy. We all know how to fly the same way, the same aircraft, all the same rules. Moving up to the fixed wing, that's now, these went out for bids, so they won the solicitation. That's a vertical takeoff and landing fixed wing, which we like because it protects our cameras. It's kind of like an Osprey. It lifts off, and then the engines flip over, and we can treat it as a fixed wing. And then for our heavy lifter, we went with the bigger helicopter, and that's capable of lifting. We're comfortable with about 8 to 10 pounds. They claim up to 15 pounds. The reason we went with a heavy lifter, and that's an expensive aircraft, we have a lot of scientists that want to hang everything you can imagine off of these things. So the second part to all this is the sensors. Like I said, we jumped on that GoPro right away because it's a $300 little camera that the 4K video is still probably some of the best video you see out there. And it was very, very useful actually right away. We moved over to the digital point and shoot cameras and digital SLR. We still actually use the little Ricoh GR. It's about a $500 camera. It's a workhorse for us. It does a lot of the good photography that we need. And I'll describe some of the processes here later. And then down on the bottom are little specialized cameras. They're about $5,000 each. A little FLIR camera that we use for thermal work, and then a multispectral camera. There's 5 bands in that little camera that will fit in my hand. About a $5,000 multispectral capability, which is pretty exciting if you've been in this long enough. And then, like I said, our scientists want to hang a lot of stuff off this. So we do have a LiDAR sensor. I'll show you some examples of that here. We just integrated a nano headwall hyperspectral, 127 bands of data there. And then even telemetry. So we hang an antenna working with NASA Ames to pick up radio tagged animals. In this case, we did an experiment with Asian carp over the Mississippi River, which worked fairly well. And then one that we've had a lot of success locally in Denver is just a Doppler radar. We hover above a stream, and we can get stream velocities, so we're not in a fixed location. That's especially good for after like wildfire runoff into the streams, but just to tighten up the flood modeling. And then the third piece to all this is stitching it all together and making the data out of it. And a lot of the buzz terms that you'll hear are computer vision, structure from motion, but really it's just old school photogrammetry, which we try to tell the young folks. There's a little magic to it, which I'll describe in a little bit, but really we're taking those photographs. It's either triggered on a timer or on a GPS, preferably off of the aircraft, and we can get our exact overlap that we need. And then we'll fly it in a lawnmower pattern. These are small areas. We usually fly between 300 to 400 feet. That's kind of our sweet spot. That will go into the photogrammetry software, which creates our point clouds. So that's just, once again, our X, Y, Z data, nothing different than we've always done. And then we create the surface model or the elevation model down to the ground if we work on it a little bit. And then the ortho mosaic after that is really quite simple. The beauty of this is, we've had career folks in USGS. I spent a good chunk of my career doing photogrammetry. This is pretty learnable, pretty easy to do. Anybody can do this. So that's part of the magic. And then our end goal is GIS data layers. This is no different than what we get off of a satellite or an airplane, just a whole lot different resolution because we're flying so low. When we look at these capabilities, I like to try to box it into assessing the technology, assessing the process, assessing the program. So to give you an example of that, to look at a program, you really want to analyze these three things for program management, pretty basic. But usually you can leverage about two of those. If you want to save time and cost, you'll probably sacrifice the quality. If you can ever really preserve or leverage all three of those, there is a really good chance that technology is going to be adopted, whether you like it or not. Somebody's going to do it, especially if it's cost effective, and it's going to happen. So let's take a look at that. This is an area down between Colorado Springs and Pueblo, Colorado, and they do survey that on a regular basis. So a surveyor will go out there, and over a course of a day, this is about a 160-acre area, so small areas. But he'll get about 250 points over the day, and he's getting X, Y, Z value, just like we always do. And if we're lucky, he'll throw a attribute on there. But that will take him a good portion of the day just to get that data, and they have to do this on an annual basis over several areas. If we happen to have a drone with us, we could actually just throw that up in the air, collect our overlapping images. This will take anywhere from an hour to 2 hours for that same size area. But what's happening is we're able to create the elevation data and then the point cloud that's actually colorized. So we're putting a color right to that exact point. And the difference now being we're collecting about the same number of points over a 1 square meter area. So you think about that. He's covered the whole area with 250 points. We're doing it per square meter. And we're actually getting very similar values from it in latitude, longitude, elevation, and we now have that red, green, blue value that we can create the ortho. So what if we had our laser going at the same time, which we did, and that, of course, can penetrate the tree cover just a little bit better, and it's the same, we're getting the same point clouds and some intensity returns and things like that, but really, the XYZ again, and we do fly that about 150 feet, maybe up to 200 feet. Just the Velodyne puck is what we're using. And once again, collecting XYZ and some other values in there. But our point density is above 200. If we fly it low and slow, we can get up to 500 points per square meter. That will model pretty much anything you need. So if we compare all the data layers, I even pulled down the 1 meter elevation that's available with the USGS. Without doing any processing whatsoever, I assessed that we're within a meter vertically of all 4 data sets. So that's without doing any refining on the data. So then you have to re-look at this a little bit. I certainly am saving time. I'm certainly saving some costs just in labor, but my quality is just about the same. So I'm preserving all 3 of those, and now I'd really have to consider that this is a technology that will probably be adopted pretty quickly. And beyond that, I have to look at what else I'm collecting. So I'm able to generate all these data layers with that same data set. If I'm savvy enough to put on yet another smaller sensor, I can collect even more data. So no shortage of data. And then I can start to do fancy 3D modeling of maybe these little river areas that we were never able to do before. And then I don't want to beat this up too much, but you can actually start to analyze that process a little more. So I could even increase my speed by flying a little higher if the laws allow that. I could plan the flight planning a little more efficiently. Utilizing, there's a lot around the whole drone industry, or all these accompanying technologies that are coming in, such as these automatic control points. We do put ground control down when we fly. These are literally lay them on the ground, hit a button, and you get RTK GPS capability down to centimeter accuracies. I don't have to train somebody how to be a surveyor or set up a base station. A lot of these, this will change surveying. And then even maybe getting into the speed of the processing, the cloud processing, which are available. And if you do want to look at a drone program, this is just an article I pulled out of a surveying magazine. It said it should cost below $10,000. And just a couple of the things I like to point out, it should require no special staffing. Anybody can learn how to fly these, especially as this emerges. It's getting easier and easier. And the quality, it should be of pretty high quality where it's actually helping your business, not that you're just trying to experiment with that technology. And we're already there. So just to give you some more examples, we do work with our sister agencies. This is the Park Service up in Laramie, Wyoming, looking over at the National Historical Site there, Fort Laramie. We did take our LiDAR sensor up there. What we're able to do is collect that data at a pretty tight resolution. And in this case, we're using it for flood modeling, and we want to get down to centimeter type vertical accuracies where we can do extremely tight flood modeling. And that's what this kind of capability gives us. Once again, this is a small area. This is about a 1 square mile area. It took 2 to 3 days to do this. But still, the amount of data you're getting and the quality is pretty spectacular. We do fly not only the LiDAR sensor, but we also put a digital SLR camera on there so we can colorize that point cloud. That will be coming up here shortly, and it will give you some pretty spectacular 3D renderings. So once we have that type of data, you can see how flat it is up there. We do have to get down to that. We can start to do that flood modeling at a very fine scale, and that's what they were after. All right. So we do a lot of hydrology work. I'd say 80% of our people that we train within the USGS are hydrologists, oddly enough. But there is a big use for it. This is, before they were just doing transects across a water basin. Now we're able to collect that whole area. Natural hazards, we're USGS, landslides, earthquakes, and volcanoes. We always have to keep our eye on flying. This is a slow-moving landslide out by Grand Junction, but if we fly that over time, we can very accurately compare those point clouds against each other and get to centimeter-type movement that's as it's creeping down towards the highway. Looking into that multispectral, which I get most excited about, we've done this for years and years, of course, with all the programs. What we're able to do now on a drone is kicking off the precision agricultural industry, a lot of the land management, the forestry. You're getting down to a very precise level. The way that we're able to do that is with these little cameras. It's a 5-channel. 2 of those are in the near infrared. We've taken it to the next level. So as this is flying along, it's taking 5 pictures at a time. So first of all, we have to line those up, and then we got to do the correction. We've taken it to the next level where we want to do the ground calibration, where we can start to do surface reflectance, just like we would do on any near-infrared aerial photography that's collected or satellite imagery. So we're able to do this. It's what you want to do if you want to do this over time, or if you're doing a agricultural prescription to weeds or to fertilizers or whatever. So what we do, actually, we wanted to develop this for our other centers. We actually go down to Lowe's, Home Depot, Menards, whatever you have out here. We cut a drywall panel in half. I like to use cement board. We paint it white, black, and gray, lay those down across our areas, and that actually gives us some calibration pads that we can use. We've done some testing against taking the spectrometers out against the pure panels, and we're getting pretty good results with that. So we've developed some of the empirical line methods where that's using the digital numbers that are coming off in the imagery. We can do just a fairly simple calibration on that and that'll give us surface reflectance. And then we can make pretty pictures like this. Using our thermal camera, we've done some agricultural tile lines in the Midwest, which are very hard to find. Some of those are near 100 years old that are underground, anywhere from 6 to 8 feet down. A lot of those are unknown, so there's always been a need for trying to map those or to find where they are. Using thermal methods, we can actually do that. I haven't seen that before. We've used multispectral before, but it does pick it up. Or stream temperatures. As I said, our hydrologists are very interested in this. We started out with biologists working with the Fish and Wildlife Service, Park Service, all those that are required to do annual census on their refuges or on their parks. We do have a couple special privileges with the FAA. We get to fly at night. We get to go up to 1,200 feet. The reason we justified flying at night without getting waivers is because we do a lot of animal census. So when you fly at night, they're a whole lot calmer, let me tell you, especially the birds. And they nest down, and it's very easy. You do it during the day, and you might have what they call a bird tornado, something like that. But we do elk, we do ducks, pelicans. This is pelicans we've done up in North Dakota and down in Nevada, but it works fairly well. Even 3D modeling, working with the Park Service. This is Devil's Tower. I went too fast there, but all we used on this was the little 3DR Solo, which is under $1,000 for the UAV. And then the camera we used was that $500 Ricoh GR. And then we did talk to the Park Service guys. They climb this on a daily basis. They hung up some vertical scale bars for us. We did put crown control around the bottom. The types of accuracies that we're able to get, and this is some of the magic of that photogrammetry software. We can take the angles of the photos as well as looking down nadir, throw that all together, and we can start to create this type of stuff pretty affordably. But that's it's a 800-foot tower, and we're able to fly around there. But the guys hung the scale bars off and then did put GPS control up on top. So throwing that all together, the accuracies we're getting are about 7 to 9 centimeters in the vertical, and in the horizontal we can do even better, 3 to 4, 5, 6, somewhere in there. Good enough. Contracting, the FAA a year ago, last August, opened that up to private companies that can fly. We can tap those guys if they have what's called a FAA Part 107. I call it a driver's license. They have to get the tests passed on that, and then they can go into business. And that's what they're doing. This is a little dated, but 35,000 companies were out there last I checked. Not all of them do mapping, of course. They do real estate, video, whatever. But there are some significantly good, even the major companies, the big companies that have traditionally done this, but even the startups are doing it quite well. So just as an example, where I can utilize those in disaster response up in New Hampshire where they have the ice jams, we can't get out there quick enough from Denver, but we could tap a local contractor, and we did. They got over there in 4 hours. They collected it, even mosaicked it for us and dropped it off, and had it in front of the governor by the next morning. In this case, out in Oregon, we're not able to get out there when they drain the reservoirs, so they were flying it as it was drained, so we can map the bottom. Just standard of what we usually do. Plus, I can tap some other vehicles that we don't have access to or other sensors. And then the next era, this is just me thinking, but of course, it's what I'm seeing all over across the venue here is computer vision, the Internet of Things, and of course, artificial intelligence. We're certainly seeing computer vision. How the other ones all work, we'll see. Just going to point out some fluffy slides here, but of our 12,000 flights we've done over the 8 years, 42% of those were done last year. So that's how this is all gearing up. And our biggest worry is the amount of data coming in. So the good and the bad, this is being adopted very quickly. Probably trained over 400 to 500 people across the department. We're all trained similarly. And in particular, the BLM, using it for wildfire, even the little firefighter, not the little, the average firefighter out there will have a drone that he can throw up in the air very quickly and look over the edge for some hot spots. But we're probably the second biggest user, our scientists doing more unique projects, but it is getting adopted by all the bureaus very quickly. I won't go through a lot of these, but this is just leveraging what we learned from the DoD on being able to handle video and all this tsunami of data coming our way. We've done it traditionally through the Aeros Data Center. We're pretty accustomed to handling large data sets, maybe not on the scale that this is going to be giving us, but certainly we're in better shape than most. And this is high level, but the whole reason we're doing it is data information so that we can make good decisions and then take action. And with emphasis on the back, anybody can collect this data, but you got to make it useful, and that's where all of us are trained on how to do that. I'll skip that one. As far as the data archiving, this will be the last part. We have sketched out some metadata framework, but we're being pushed heavily to do standards on the data. The problem with that is so many sensors that are surrounding this industry. You have to write a data standard for every one of those sensors, and that's a big, big job. So we're doing what we can. We do archive our data. We want to get it out into the public. We're the government flying drones, so we want to be as transparent as possible. We put it out on the Earth Explorer at the Aeros Data Center with as much metadata that we can, and it's all lines up with all our other data sets available to the public. And just our little group, we train people and handhold them, get them going, and we try to do what we can with our small staff. This is the aviation services guys up in Boise at the department level, handling the air side of it, and then our guys in Denver that we get to do this full time. So that's the advantage. That's all I have. Other questions?
Thank you, Jeff. We do have a question about the importance of geo-registration for your collects. How do you geo-register your imagery, and what is the accuracy?
Okay, almost always the cameras now have GPS embedded in them. If not, we somehow connect them to the platform, which is pretty standard now. So we trigger all that off of the GPS, off of the drone, if we can. That is embedded into the individual images. So if we collect a JPEG, that's in the header information, latitude, longitude, and altitude. We also lay down ground control. So when we run it through our photogrammetry software, we let the image take over, get it in the right place. It'll usually get it to 2 to 3 meters roughly. Then we'll hold that all out and we'll add in our ground control, and we can get it down to centimeter level, both vertically and horizontally, pretty regularly.
Thank you. Now, you've been doing this for 30 years for USGS pretty much the whole time.
Not drones, but...
Okay, yeah, not drones, of course, but you've had experience also in the DoD side and DHS side. Can you maybe speak to some of your background in supporting some of the other government agencies?
Those were prior lives, so I worked with the Defense Mapping Agency, and I started out hand scribing in San Antonio, Texas. And so we've seen this whole evolution go through. We were loaned out when DHS got started in the mid-2000 era. The USGS loaned us out to get their programs going. So I worked with Custom and Border Protection, and they all have, of course, mapping needs and capabilities. They actually have been in the drone world a lot longer than we have. DHS, of course, they have the mission on both of the borders. They have obviously quite a bit bigger platforms than we do, but we've actually leveraged them somewhat.
Great, thank you. Any other questions from the audience? All right, thank you very much, Jeff.